And we are live. It's Dr. J here in the house with Evan. Evan, how are we doing today, man?
Doing well. The sky is blue. The weather is amazing. I looked at your forecast for this week too. It's going to be like 75 and sunny all day, every day. So that's going to be amazing. We're inside though. Maybe we need to do like outside recordings. Maybe you need to go like sit out back in a hammock and record with me so we don't miss this weather because then it's going to be cold and we're going to be complaining. Um,
I know.
lo- but long story short, we were talking pre-show about just how everything this year has been kind of crazy, and a lot of
Totally.
people are expressing issues with their mental health, their physical health, their emotional health. It's affecting our clients, it's affecting potential clients, people that are reaching out to us that have had businesses closed down or potential job losses, and a lot of economic issues that have caused a lot of mental emotional problems for people. So the idea today was, well, let's try to cover kind of a broad stroke, if you will, of how we could use functional medicine to
Totally.
improve mental health. So let's dive in.
Love it. So off the bat, like we kind of go back to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? That's kind of like the first thing. So I always tell patients off the bat, there's kind of a foundation of functional medicine needs. That's going to be clean water, sleep, and then clean food. And now we can kind of get in the middle of it in the weeds with the food and kind of getting your macros dialed in and getting all that kind of dialed in. But clean water, clean food, and good sleep. And so I always tell patients the more stressed you are, the more you need to be rested, fed, and watered. And the more those things are kind of stable and that's like your foundation, the better adaptable you will be at dealing with stress, adapting to stress. So the health and stress adaptation are intimately connected. So the more stressed you are, if you start going towards alcohol and processed food and staying up too late and watching too much news, it's going to get that fear cycle going. You're not going to have enough rest to recharge your parasympathetic nervous system. You'll be too much sympathetic dominant. You'll be leaning on your adrenals, leaning more on cortisol, leaning more on adrenaline, and it's going to be harder for you to digest. You'll be just kind of on the edge every time with your emotions. The smallest thing will set you off, and you won't have a good, solid foundation.
Yeah, I think people should really just get rid of the social media apps on their phone. I mean, that was something that I did. I just noticed that if I have the social media apps off my phone and I have to go to a web browser to check them, it's much more inconvenient to do it. So I'm much less likely to do it. And also, for me, you have the option of being. Oh, speaking of that, you hear his little notification sound. Oh, social
I
media.
just turned it off right now. Airplane mode, baby.
It'll it well it's a it there's been like trials done on how long it takes you to get focused again. And so what I've tried to do is to limit my distractions. I think the world now has become a world full of distractions, mainly because people are trying to solve all the world's problems on their own, meaning, I care about the trees getting cut down in the Amazon. So I'm going to go read about this. And then I care about this. So I'm going to go read about that. And then you're so scatterbrained that you kind of lost your own productivity. So I'm not saying that you need to just, put your head in a hole and turn the world's problems off in your head like they don't exist. No, I think it's just a fine line. And I think most people have lost the line of productivity because they're so focused on the issues. And a lot of the day-to-day decisions you make aren't going to change the world that much. Like there's nothing I could do necessarily right this very second besides maybe donating some money to some organization to stop cutting trees in the Amazon. Like it sucks. I don't like to see, you got all this illegal deforestation going on, but there's only so much you can do. So you got to find a way to find a healthy way to absorb the media, and most media is negative. So social media, news, and a lot of it's not serving you. That's the only point I have to make.
Yeah, I do think number one, social media is a big one. You kind of have to like use it. Don't let it use you, right? So turn off the notifications. Don't let it kind of be there, something that you always go to, right? I think deleting it from your phone, or at least maybe on the weekends or periodically deleting it can be helpful because you're not going to access it as much on the web browser. I think also people forget that most people use social media as their highlight reel. So they only post great things about their life and people feel bad about it. So I'm very aware about that. And I don't overly post the highlight reel of my life on there because those things are between me and my family. And I don't need to share it with the whole world every now and then. I'll give people a glimpse, but it doesn't need to be there all the time. A lot of people overdo that. And people forget that they're seeing someone else's highlight reel and it makes their life feel a little bit less than or more inferior. And you got to remember that, right? You can't forget it. That gives you kind of a good perspective and a grounding. And it really just comes back to appreciation, right? The more you're grounded in appreciation for what you have, that really shifts that stress and that sympathetic kind of response of just inadequacy and feeling like your life's not enough.
Yeah. And there's people that we know that are incredibly successful in business and wealth and all of that. And these people will go publicly bring up their anxiety and depression. So when you look at someone's life and you see, oh, they have it so good, I'm so jealous of this or that car or this house or whatever, a lot of people listening may just shut it down immediately. And they say, oh, no, I don't care. I'm not comparing myself. But it's kind of a subconscious thing. You're not even really aware that it's happening. Just type in like Instagram depression. There's some studies done that it was the most depressing social media. So I don't want to make it the whole anti-social media podcast, but you hit on gratitude. And I think that's really the key. So what I try to do is like a walking gratitude. It's very, very helpful. So I'll take the kids outside and I'll just walk, whether it's in the backyard, whether it's down the driveway, whether it's in the, by the garage. I'll just find a place to just walk. And I'm just focusing on the motions of the body, just shaking up and down. And I'm just thinking, man, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. Look at this beautiful day. Look at the sun. Look at the blue clouds or the white clouds with the blue sky. Look at the contrast. Look at the green on the trees. Oh, we've got a little bit of yellow coming in on these maples over here. This is gorgeous. Oh, look at that red tree over there. And it'll really take you out of the fear. It'll take you out of the worry, those repetitive thoughts. And this is not talking to one or two people here. On my intake form, which thousands of people have submitted, you and I use a couple different form creation tools. I've looked at how many submissions we have, and it's literally like 95% of people out of these thousands have reported, yes, they beat themselves up with negative self-talk. That's a question on the intake form. Do you beat yourself up with negative self-talk? 95% say yes. Now, is that because you and I have a population who has symptoms and they want to get better? Or is that indicative of the general population too? I would say the general population would be the same.
Yeah, I heard someone say this a couple of years ago. They said, imagine, all the inner thoughts about yourself, kind of write that down. Okay. And imagine if someone else said those things to you. Would you be friends with that person? Probably not, right? So it's amazing how hard people are regarding the inner dialogue. And I always just kind of, as inner dialogue comes through your brain, ask yourself, would you be friends with that person if someone else said that to you? Probably not. So I always just try to say to people, make sure you would be friends with the person that would be saying the inner thoughts that you're actually thinking.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a really good call. Well, you can be your best friend or you can be your worst enemy. And I think it's easy to become your worst enemy because, I don't know, you're the one who has to look in the mirror, right? So you're always going to be the one to blame yourself. But
yep. And if that happens, right, what do you do? Right. I mean, I think if you have that inner dialogue that kind of shifts overtly negative to yourself, what do you do? In NLP world, you go and you visualize the stop sign, right? You don't beat yourself up over it. You visualize the stop sign and then you shift into appreciation. Or some folks will have the elastic band on their wrist and they'll pull it tight, right? To create that negative neuroassociation, whether it's a physical elastic snap or whether it's a stop sign coming in that's visually cueing you to stop, however you want to do it. And then just kind of refocus your energy in a non-shameful way to the things that you have that are great, right? Because that stuff needs to be, it's like weeds grow automatically. Negative thoughts grow automatically. It takes no effort to be a cynic in today's world. It takes no effort. It really takes a lot of effort to be an appreciator and to focus on the things that you have. So just kind of use some of those cues to stop the negative thought and then shift over into the positive thought. Now, I always find too, some people, it just kind of feels good to be negative a little bit where you're kind of venting over something. And if you feel that way, just do it while tapping on some meridian points, some of the EFT meridian points. Because I find at least if you're going to be negative, this at least decreases that sympathetic tone. And then what happens is as that nervous system kind of calms down a little bit, it's easier to shift back into that positive perspective. So you can do some of the EFT points, chin, under the nose, under the eye. I double tap. I find it's more efficient for me.
And as
Outer
you're doing
eyebrow,
this, and
inner
as you're doing
eyebrow.
this, you're kind of talking about the negative thoughts that could be,
Yeah.
oh, I feel
Just
stressed,
talk
I
about
feel
it.
irritable.
Yeah, just talk about whatever it is. I always like to go into it assigning it a number. So out of 10, 10 being the worst intensity, where are you at? You at a 5, a 6, a 7? And I try to go into it taking whatever that number is, I want to cut it in half. So if I'm at a 7, I'm going to cut it down to a 3 or a 4. If I'm at a 6, I want to cut it down to a 3. If I'm at a 10, I want to cut it down below a 5. So I just try to go into it and have that conversation with myself about whatever that thing is that's pissing me off, whatever it is that, hey, that difficult patient, that really stressful bill, whatever it is, right? And I just kind of go into it, kind of do a little audit of where you're at, and then try to get that down until it's at least half below where it's at. And that kind of puts you back in the driver's seat. And then it gives you the ability to shift to being positive, because you can't be positive. It's harder to be positive when you have that emotional sting at a higher level on that subjective scale I gave you. So if you can cut it in half, that gives you the ability now to downshift from negative into positive. Too many people just want to make that shift while they're at a high level of negative. It's too difficult. And that's where doing the EFT can be helpful, because 1, it gives you permission to be negative, but 2, you're giving your nervous system a little bit of a bump to be able to neutralize it.
That is the best point you've made about the emotional stress piece, because this is like taking somebody who's in the middle of a full-blown panic attack and saying, just chill out.
Just chill out. Like, just relax. Like, be positive. No, can't do that. Can't do that. So this is where like the EMDR, and then you can kind of scatter your eyes around while you do it too, right? So you can go look at like a clock face and go to 1, 9, 3, 6. So you can tap while you're pretending like you're looking at different clock numbers with your eyes. And because when you move your eyes, that uses different cranial nerves, which uses different parts of the brain. And that kind of, the whole goal is you're kind of scattering that signal. Number 1, you're interrupting the pattern. Number 2, it's kind of like if you're talking about something, you ever had it where someone interrupted you and you're like, what the hell was I talking about? Right? You ever have that? That's kind of what you're doing a little bit to your brain and some of the negative thinking. You're trying to scatter that pattern and make it a little bit harder for your brain to go back to it. And then you're like, what was I mad about? Oh yeah, that. And then it makes it easier than shift into positive.
I just try to go outside too. Like for some reason, well, duh. I mean, humans were meant to be outside. We're not meant to be in boxes all day. But, if you have a thought that is intrusive, you can just go out, and I'll take a pair of binoculars and I'll just go outside and I'll just watch the birds, or I'll go fill up the bird feeder, I like a suet feeder. Suet's like a big chunky, It's like fatty, seedy type feed. I like to go put that out and watch the woodpeckers come in. And if I'm looking at them, I'm not thinking about anything. But yeah, that's a great point. Now let's tie the functional medicine piece into what you said, because I think what you said is a really good place to pivot, which is you can't take someone, because someone listening who's just so stressed out right now, they're gonna listen to you talk about tapping, or if they're watching the video on YouTube, see you tapping, they're like, what is this guy doing? He's freaking tapping his forehead. I'm so pissed. I don't care. What is this going to do? That person's a 10. He can't even comprehend getting down to a 5 right now.
Yeah.
So on the, maybe you would call it the herbalist functional medicine side, maybe we come in and give that guy or gal a shot of passion flower, or maybe we give them a couple 100 milligrams of some pharma GABA, or maybe a little bit of motherwort, or maybe some ashwagandha, or maybe some holy basil. Maybe we come in with some B vitamins, because you and I know, based on looking at thousands and thousands of people on organic acids testing, that if you're really, really stressed, you're going to burn out your Bs, as in Bravo. Your B vitamins are going to be toast. We know that based on looking at these labs, your neurotransmitters are going to be affected. So you may have low dopamine, you may have low serotonin, which is causing more anxiety, but then the low dopamine is causing lack of energy and lack of drive. So let's dive into some of these more functional pieces now.
Yeah. So we talked about the mindset stuff. We talked about tools to kind of decrease that sympathetic output. And it's just tapping on meridian points, right? Acupressure, acupuncture points, kind of how energy and nervous system energy flows to the body. It's just helping that energy flow better. Whether you call it chi, or whether you call it action potential, or nervous system, nerve flow, whatever you want to say, right? Blood flow, it's all connected, right? It's all connected, right? So off the bat, we're talking about functional stuff. So when you're stressed, what are important things? Well, blood sugar stability is really important, because most people get on a roller coaster of blood sugar when they get stressed, meaning they're overly gravitating towards alcohol. They're overly gravitating towards refined sugar. Their blood sugar goes up and then crashes down. And then it creates more nervous system stimulation via adrenaline and epinephrine being stimulated and cortisol being stimulated to bring your blood sugar back up. So I find just keep it really simple and really easy with your meals. You may be more nauseous when you're overly stressed because stress hormone does cause you to feel nauseous. So this is where you may want to do a soup or a simple smoothie, something really easy where there's not a lot of digestion, but you're still getting some protein, some fat in there, whether it's some collagen and some coconut milk or just sipping on some bone broth, right? Something like that's going to have some good fat, good protein, and it won't be hard to digest. So if you feel nauseous, just still know you should probably be eating, but just try to make it something very easy on your tummy. And then think, what are some of the nutrients your nervous system's going to need when you're more stressed? So low hanging fruit, B vitamins, B complex is going to be very essential. Magnesium is going to be excellent. GABA, L-theanine. These are good things that are going to help you relax and wind down. Evan kind of mentioned valerian root or passion flower, which are all connected to GABA and that kind of inhibitory neurotransmitter that helps you just relax a little bit. Kind of puts the clutch in gear, disengages the gearbox, so you can kind of downshift, so to speak.
Did you ever do kava when you were down in Austin?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've done kava still.
Did you go to the bars though? There's like a couple kava bars.
I've never done it at a bar, but I've done it. Someone brought it over to my house. They got it from Fiji before. I did. It was relaxing. I like kava. That does a lot with GABA too, right?
Yeah, it does. I felt weird. My throat, I was like, whoa, am I having a reaction to this? Like it numbs your throat so much. It was a bizarre feeling.
Yeah.
I'm not recommending it. I'm not recommending it as a tool, but it could be a good tool. I just thought I'd bring it up because when you mentioned like valerian, I thought, man, I remember that one time I drank kava. It was a weird, almost like an out of body relaxation. And I didn't feel very grounded. It was kind of like, whoa, I'm floating in the room kind of feeling.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, like I always go to nutrients first, and then I go to my favorite adaptogenic herbs second. So ashwagandha is one of my favorites, right? Ashwagandha, rhodiola, excellent. Holy basil. Those are kind of like my favorite kind of very relaxing, tonifying kind of herbs, if you will. I just made up a new word, relaxifying. I like it.
Hey, I like it too. Relaxifying. Do you get any sort of change in your outlook with holy basil? Because for me, that's the one that's most significant. Like I feel like I could take on the world when I get like a, I don't know, 500-600 milligram of holy basil. It's kind of like I am ready for the challenge. It's a weird because I'm calm, but I'm also energized at the same time. Do you get anything like that?
It hasn't been in my stack for a while. So right now my big stacks on my desk is going to be ashwagandha. I do have some GABA chewables and GABA sublingual. I mean, I think if you just took people's works and took, in their place of work, whatever, and you took away all the candy and you just put like magnesium and you put GABA, like lozenges, right? Think about how much of a stress reduction that'd be at people's works, right? It'd be so much better. Maybe some B vitamins.
Yeah. I mean, if you and I had brick and mortar places, what I would do instead of a little, how old school, like front desk, you've got a little glass of like lifesavers and peppermints and a bunch of garbage. I'd have like pre-packaged chewable pharma GABA sitting there.
Yep. Chewable pharma GABA, some sublingual magnesium, maybe some L-theanine shots, right? Keep it really simple. I remember in doctorate school before finals, we would like make drinks of like ginseng and holy basil. And we'd like create these like shot glasses all lined up with herbs where we take it. It was fun. I mean, those are some fun times, but yeah. So we just got to think a little bit differently in how you deal with stress. It's just a different mindset change.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you said, how people get into the alcohol and to the sugar and all of that and the carbohydrates and the blood sugar roller coaster. I think people don't understand why that happens. So I just want to give people a brief education of why that's happening from a, neurotransmitter perspective. That way you feel a little more confident that you can change this and you're not just a victim to the food. So when we look at urine and you measure these neurotransmitter metabolites, we can see that after a period of stress, especially if somebody's been working with us for several years, we can see that, they went through a divorce. Look what happened to their endorphins, for example. The endorphins got burned out. And with the help of Julia Ross, she has an amazing amino acid therapy chart in her books. you can see that the symptoms of low endorphins start to pop up. So these are the people that cry at the drop of the hat. These are the people that hard on the sleeve, real emotionally sensitive. They crave dark chocolate. They're going for food to comfort themselves or reward themselves. Those are low endorphin signs. We'll match up those symptoms to the neurotransmitter report on the oat. And then we'll come in with a therapeutic nutrient like D-L-phenylalanine to rebuild the endorphins. And then within 4 to 6 weeks, you can have 50, 60% difference in symptoms, where these people that were running to the cookie because they were stressed or running to the alcohol at night to relax, they no longer need that. Now, they may still do it, but they literally don't have the physiological need to do that. Some people say, I just can't relax until I have that glass of wine. Once you rebuild the brain chemistry, they literally don't need it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, if you're having a stressful day, I mean, alcohol, don't get me wrong, is a wonderful downer. I mean, it really does help relax people. Now, obviously, if you're going to engage in alcohol, keep it to like a drier champagne, a drier white wine, keep it to a clean alcohol, and try to do it after you've eaten. So you're not creating a blood sugar swing, because alcohol can actually lower your blood sugar, and then that creates more cravings and more cravings for junky food, right? So if you're going to have a glass of alcohol, right, don't get drunk, but two, if you're going to have a glass, make sure it's a healthy version, then just try to have some good protein before you have it. Like, so if you go out, for instance, have some oysters, maybe a little bit of seafood, maybe a shrimp cocktail, and have a glass of champagne or two, or a cava or prosecco, or something clean, a clean alcohol. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if it's not an everyday kind of thing. I think it's totally fine. And, make sure you're utilizing some of the nutrients we talk about, so you're supporting the neurotransmitters as well.
Yeah. Check out our podcast. We did a whole one on the whole biohacking alcohol thing.
Yeah, that's helpful.
So sunshine is huge. I mean, granted, when you're in certain parts of the country, you really lose the sun. You really lose it because you get clouds. And, if you're really high northern latitude, it's really tough to get sun. I've got a lot of clients in Canada, and they just get major seasonal depression. And so for those people, like a light therapy box can be helpful. I already know for me personally, it's affected me. Like when it gets dark at 5, 6 p.m., I mean, I just mentally, I just don't like it. And so a light therapy box can be very good. A lot of times you're going to see those at around 10,000 lux, LUX. That's a pretty bright light. Of course, nothing is going to beat the sunshine, but if it's like you're in Alaska and you literally are, hours of sun per day, whereas before it was 12 hours and now you're 3 hours of sunlight, that's really tough mentally. So sun can be helpful. I wish tanning beds weren't so controversial, because years ago, I had a friend who worked at a gym who had a level, I think they called it a level 3 or a level 4 tanning bed, which was not something that closed on you. It wasn't like magnetic field ballast. Like I measured it, there was no EMF coming from it, but it was almost like these stage lights, almost like a theatrical performance, like a red light up at the top. And you could get a tan, I mean, literally in a couple of sessions. But I did it for mental health. And we know that sunlight in general can really help act as almost like morphine. It can really help modulate these opiate receptors in the brain. I remember coming out of a 6 or 7 minute session and I was just high on life. I felt so good after that. And I thought, wow, I wish this didn't have to be so controversial, because if someone could get access to something like this, if we knew that it wasn't going to increase risk of skin cancers and such, man, what could it do for all the depressed people out there that have seasonal affective issues in the winter?
Yeah, I think it just comes down to, when you're dealing with sun, it's just don't burn. Just don't get a burn and you'll be fine. And that's different for every single person. Mm-hmm. So of course, natural sunlight's going to be ideal. I think it's going to be excellent. So that's a good first step for sure. We talked about some of the B vitamins and things. I think that's really essential. I think also, just from a financial standpoint, I think it's really, really good. People talk about it, just having that 6-month emergency fund, right? Try to have, 6 months of being able to take care of your family, whether it's food, living, mortgage. Just try to really make sure at least 3 to 6 months. If people had that during COVID, I think there'd be way less financial stress for people. I know it's a tough thing to do, but I think it's something to strive for in regards to financial health. Just really look for that 6 month, 3 to 6 month emergency fund. I think is smart. Yeah.
And try to get rid of things that you don't truly need. I mean, I've had several people who say, oh, this or that about budget, but they've got the $140 a month cable bill, and they've got the subscription to this or that adds up to hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month. So I think with the reducing subscriptions where you can, the emergency fund is smart. And then from the food security perspective too. I remember months ago, you and I were talking about this. There was talk about some of these meat processing plants and stuff shutting down. And I had literally some of my clients freaking out, thinking that they were going to run out of meat and not be able to feed their family. I mean, they were probably just watching too much news about the subject. But that's why I always recommend everyone have a good chest freezer. You can get them for $100 and go on Local Harvest or Eat Wild, or just Google local farms around you. We have a farm that I pay them a little bit extra, but they'll deliver to the house, and we'll have literally an entire chest freezer full of amazing grass-fed meat at anywhere from $6 to $10 a pound, depending on the cut. And we don't have to worry about going to Whole Foods where we're going to get shamed if we don't want to wear a mask, and then we're buying their overpriced stuff sitting in the fridge. I've got my local farm, bringing pastured meats at a fraction of the cost to my door. Throw in the chest freezer. I sleep great at night knowing that if something were to happen to the food supply, my children and my wife and I will be well fed. And then, of course, well, what if the electrical grid? Well, I don't know. That's pretty slim chance. I know people in California worried about that earlier this year because of the fires. People were thinking, well, what if I have the chest freezer full of meat and then the electrical grid goes off because California turns off my power? A generator, hopefully it's not a long-term thing, but you just got to problem solution. You can't just get paralyzed by the problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I always talk about it. You got to close the loop, right? You have a problem. When you don't close the loop and you think about the solution and you keep these loops, I call them keeping these loops open. That's where stress happens. When you close the loop, that's where you feel a lot better, because it's all right. Problem, solution. You're constantly opening and closing loops all day long. That's kind of how you want to think about it. So you have maximal, stress reduction. So we talked about physiology, right? That's the foundation, because remember, that's like this is the vehicle. This is the suit, the biochemical suit we have to walk through every day. And not everyone's suit is the same in how we can deal with stress. So if you're coming into this, 20 minutes late and you're like, well, what do I focus on? Focus on the physiological biochemical suit, because that gives you the ability to adapt. And then from there, you can try to grab one or two things that work best for you. Mindset's really important. Dealing with some of these stress can be helpful. Talking about some of the supplements can be helpful. Making sure you're in a good kind of financial situation can be helpful as well. Those are all good kind of strategies out of the gates. Anything else you want to talk about functional medicine wise? So we talked about some of the organic acid testing and looking at neurotransmitters. That can be helpful, because I find people that are, let's say long-term stressed out people, we're going to see a lot of neurotransmitter patterns that are pretty depleted regarding amino acids and dopamine and adrenaline and serotonin. And that may be a longer thing you have to work on repleting with amino acids. So that may not be just a supplement you one and done kind of thing. It may take a while to work on repleting that, especially, the faster it happens is when you work on all the sleep stuff and the diet stuff. That gets better, but that's a bucket that may need some effort to work on repleting.
Yeah, the only other functional medicine piece we're going to be looking into for these like super stressed people is looking into the gut. We're going to be looking at gut inflammation. We're going to be looking at parasites, bacterial overgrowth, all the stuff we normally talk about, candida, because there could be some more functional reasons why someone is going into the cookies, for example, or the alcohol. Maybe on a neurotransmitter test, they look okay, but in regards to their gut, maybe they have all these bacterial pathogens or parasitic pathogens that are kind of like begging for some sort of quick burning glucose, right? So we may come in, and I noticed personally just using some mimosa. I was doing some experiments with not the orange juice cocktail thing, but actual mimosa, the seed, mimosa tree seed in capsule form. That's very beneficial for calming down my gut. And I noticed mentally I was calm just by calming down my gut. So don't forget about the gut-brain axis. There is a connection there. And so if you're having digestive problems, now whether that's due to stress or whether it's due to infections, if you're having diarrhea or constipation or stomach cramping or food intolerances, you got to try to address those, because it does signal an alert danger to the brain. Meaning if you're going and eating this allergenic food, irritating the gut, that can then irritate your brain and cause issues. So I've had some people that have gotten anxious after certain foods. And we know that histamine is a neurotransmitter as well. So if you're having histamine reactions, even just something like a low histamine diet may be useful to help calm the brain down because of some of the reactions there with histamine. So people think it's just histamine allergies. No, but it can also affect your brain chemistry. And so you got to focus on that. Maybe herbal antihistamines are something we would use, or some enzymes to help to reduce some of the effectiveness of the histamine on the brain. So I think that's probably my last piece.
Yeah, I think those are all valid points for sure. You know, you talked about histamine, you talked about inflammation, and inflamed brain's not going to focus and not going to do as well. So, again, inflammation, whether it's food allergens or deeper gut issues, is a big one. Also, menopausal women, you know, lower hormone issues can affect the brain. So, try to make sure your hormones are at least at a good, stable place because that's going to help with brain inflammation. That's going to help with cognitive stuff as well. So everyone's coming at this from a different place, from a different foundational weakness. So just try to figure out where you're at and take at least one or two steps, you know, forward on that. Also, exercise can be helpful. So just try to find a couple of movements, simple movements that you can do 5-10 minutes. That's going to help really decrease a bunch of stress. So whether it's a push movement, a pull movement, a sit, a squat, a bend, a pull, whatever that movement pattern is, just try to engage in some of these simple movements. It's going to really help your mood, and it's going to take a lot of that mental energy and allow you to kind of put it out into that physical movement pattern.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, exercise is key. I should have mentioned it earlier. I mean, I feel amazing after I just do some dumbbells or row machine or hike in the woods, hike in the field, you know, whatever I could do to move. I mean, and it's free, right? It's free. So, and you don't need any permission to do that. So, obviously, if you're going into a gym and you're doing the whole mass thing in a gym, maybe that's not as fun. So get outside, go somewhere where, you know, you have your own space and you don't have people, you know, breathing down your neck, so to speak. But I think with the gut piece, the neurotransmitter piece, the aminos, here's kind of the summary of today and what's been going on in the world. A lot of people are just like, hey, things are crazy, I give up. But this is actually the time where you really want to dial things in even more. This is a time where you want to focus even more to keep your body, keep your mind, keep your sleep patterns healthy. This is not a time where screw it, I'm going to go off the rails and just drink a case of beer. This isn't the time to do that. A lot of people, they're so stressed, they have no other coping mechanism. But I would argue everything you and I have been talking and doing and preaching and clinically doing for people, this is kind of like the showdown. This is like, okay, what did all that work we put in actually do? Were we the last man standing? Meaning everyone else got burned out and ended up on, you know, anti-anxiety medication, and we stayed calm and cool through the whole thing. I think this is the time where you can see all the hard work paying off.
100%. I think you're totally kind of dialed in. Also, one thing I've been doing a little bit is a little more meditation, and just keep it really simple with breathing. Just focus on breath. You can do kind of a biofeedback device like the Muse that I talked about. We'll put a link down below for that. That's one thing I'm experimenting more with. It just kind of gives you that little bit of a thumbs up from a biofeedback standpoint that you're putting your brain in a pretty good place when you're meditating. I think it gives people confidence they're doing it right. The problem I find with meditation is most people are like, am I doing this right? And there's this insecurity in what the heck they're doing. And then that prevents them from being compliant with it. So I think having a extra kind of pat on the back, yep, you're doing it right. You're doing good with some kind of a device that helps, whether it's HRV or the Muse or M-Wave type of technology. These kind of things I think are helpful to give you the confidence that you're doing something right.
Yeah. Yeah. The flotation tank is awesome.
Float,
So doing a float would be good. Deep tissue massage would be great. Calming essential oils would be great. Epsom salt baths would be great. Is anything you can do to downshift? We talked about the shifting phenomenon quite a bit, but
there's a lot of options for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Well, let's wrap this thing up. So if people need help, we're here for you. We always have been, and we intend to be kind of on the front lines helping people with all this stuff. So if you need to reach out to Dr. J, justinhealth.com is the website. If you need to reach out to me, evanbrand.com is the website, and we're here for you. So don't give up. Don't give in. You got to keep pushing forward every day. You still got to put your pants on. You still got to do the thing, whether it's take care of your kids, take care of your wife, your husband, take care of your career. You still got to move forward. So I know it's easy to get kind of stuck. And like you mentioned, I like the idea of the open loops, closing the loops. I know you can get stuck in these open loops, but you got to close the doors, try to simplify, try to, minimize decision-making, focus on the big things, and you're going to be just fine.
I love it. Excellent, Evan. Well, great podcast today. evanbrand.com to reach out to Evan, justinhealth.com to reach out to me. We're available worldwide if you want to dive in and look deeper at your physiology, biochemistry, neurotransmitters, gut, whatever the root issue is. We're here to help. You guys have a phenomenal day. Click down below for all the important links. You guys take care. Bye now.
Take care now. Bye-bye.